Greetings and welcome to the Introduction to Astronomy. In this week's Misconception in Astronomy, we are going to talk about astronomy and astrology and find out if they are the same. So, are these two the same? And the very quick answer is very definitely no. Astronomy and astrology are quite different. However, it is something that I often hear from students that will refer to the astrology class, and they don't necessarily understand the differences. And one of the problems is that they do have very similar roots. And many early astronomers were also astrologers. And in fact, we see the horoscope here cast by Johannes Kepler. Now, Kepler was the astronomer who gave us the laws of planetary motion, explaining how the planets move in their orbits, that the orbits are elliptical, and that planets move at varying speeds, two things that had been believed for over a millennium. But Kepler also cast horoscopes, such as the one here. So, what is the difference between those two? And really, when we look at them now, astronomy is studying the universe, while astrology is studying the perceived impact of celestial objects on our lives. Now, we see a lot of the same terminology in some of these, as you'll hear things like retrograde or a conjunction, and those are things that do happen in astronomy. The planets do undergo a retrograde motion, and because we didn't understand it long ago, people tended to think that that might mean something bad is going to happen. So if Mars was retrograde at the time of your birth, that might have meant something about your life compared to if it had not been going retrograde. A conjunction of two of the planets, with them both being, say, in the same constellation, would also have some certain meaning under the rules of astrology. But really, when we look at one horoscope here, and let's go ahead and switch that, and we can see one example of a horoscope for King Charles I of England, and that is what we really consider. And at this point, there was still a big overlap between astronomy and astrology. But that was starting to fade away, and another 100 or so years after this, astronomy and astrology really separated from one another, had two very different meanings, and astrology now is considered what we'd say a pseudoscience, which in a way means that it uses scientific terms, as I mentioned, a couple of them, things like the retrograde motion, or things like a conjunction of objects, which are very scientific terms. It also needs detailed calculations of the positions of the planets, which was the same thing astronomers were doing long ago. That was their big idea, was to calculate the positioning of the planets. So they were doing the same kind of thing, but more modern studies have shown that there is absolutely no connection between the planets and our lives here on Earth. So let's go ahead and finish up with our summary, and what we've looked at today was astronomy and astrology, and we said that while they have similar roots, they are very different subjects today, and scientific studies have shown that there is no validity to astrological predictions. So that concludes this week's misconception on astronomy and astrology being the same. We'll be back again next week for another misconception in astronomy. So until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you in class.